All right, and now we're going to move on to our last availability for today. We are now joined by the driver of the number two Richard Childress Racing Chevrolet, Jesse Love. We'll get straight to questions with Jesse as well. If you have a question for Jesse, please raise your hand and we'll do our best to get a mic to you. We'll start with Cameron over here on the right.
Cameron Caraway for the Cam's Eye View. So I've known that you've ran under Kenny Shepard's 5150 Junior Late Series at Madera. Can you just talk about like what that experience brought to you, being able to drive in those full size stock cars just so young, especially at like a short track like Madera, like Phoenix is kind of like the short track package like you guys run. So like, can you just talk about like what contribution that program that Kenny Shepard made like brought to your career?
Yeah, absolutely. Kenny was like the first guy that, for me at least, like how my dad explained to me, like moving up and racing, right? Basically, have a where you are and where you want to be, and a long ladder to get there, and then people kind of have to pull you up, right? And you meet people throughout your career that do help pull you up the ladder and get to the next, step on the staircase or however you want to put it. But Kenny was probably, other than my dad, obviously, like the first guy in my career that was the first guy that like pulled me up to the next step and helped me out. And I remember the first year I didn't run it because we wanted to see how it went, and that was the first probably 4 or 5 years that junior late deal was humongous and really big. Obviously, had a lot of good guys running it, and that's what got me started with TRD because I was Haley Deegan's teammate, and she was in the Toyota program. So, I don't think that I would have. I'm interested, but I don't think at least that I would have made it this far if it weren't for junior late models and for Kenny and all the guys over there, Ken Clapp and people like that were kind of in that circle. So obviously it was huge because I learned how to drive a stock car, for the first time. But I would have done that anyway. More so it was, learning how to talk to sponsors, and I got my first sponsor with 5150, which was an energy drink company. It still is, I believe, but that kind of promoted me to figure out how to talk to C4, and now I have a deal with C4, right? And talking on camera, doing all this stuff that I think I was 11 my first year. Again, that's like going to Harvard for racers, right? Was doing that junior late deal. So Kenny was the first guy that kind of believed in me and saw something in me to kind of pull me up to the next level, and that was one of the probably the biggest break in my career.
We'll come up front to Cooper here next.
Hi, Jesse Cooper with Cronkite News. Last year, or both races at Phoenix, you had some pretty good runs, a couple of stage wins, second place here in the spring. What kind of fits your eye about this racetrack? Is it just the grooves of the car? Do you like it set up a certain way?
Yeah, I was talking to Kim Kuhn about it earlier. It's the only place that I have a bunch of races at. I think I have 7 or 8 races here under my belt, which is pretty big for me. Again, I feel like I'm trying to get away from it now, but I've always been a pretty analytical driver, and I've got this 30-page notebook on Vegas and stuff I just learn every time I come here. I know from the outside looking in, Phoenix doesn't always look like crazy technical or fun, but it's, at least for me, the most technical racetrack that we go to. You know, as far as technique wise, like we can approach the corner so many different ways. You can back it up and try to create a bunch of shape and get in the gas early. You can de-wedge the car on the apron, both ends now. Allgaier found that in the spring last year, and that's been something that I've been working at, since I saw him do that. You can have a later min speed and, get to the gas super late in the corner, which is kind of what I seem to trend to. Because of that, there's like probably 6 or 7 different ways that you can run this racetrack. And because I've driven an ARCA car here, I've driven a truck here, and obviously an Xfinity car, I am able to have like this huge like notebook in the back of my head of when my car's doing this, I can do that. So it kind of takes pressure off my crew chief because, if we're plowing tight, we can make good speed, and if we're free, I can make good speed. So it just goes back to, how many races I have here. And because I have all those races, I have this, big notebook to lean on.
We'll hit Jeff, and then we'll hit Lee.
You were sitting up here, right here, when you were a 15-year-old winning the ARCA West Championship.
Yeah.
What's the biggest thing that you think you've learned to adapt in your career since then, and what's the biggest thing you feel like you still have progress or you could make progress on in your career?
It's a subjective answer because it's funny. Life is so weird, right? Like every situation, somebody wants something different from you. Like sometimes my girlfriend wants me to tell her when she's doing something wrong, and sometimes she doesn't, and sometimes she does. And I was pointing that out to her yesterday. Like, man, the last 3 times you wanted me to tell you when this was happening, and now you don't. It's funny, right? Because life is so different every day that you show up to it. It's funny because I've been thinking about this a lot. You know, like sometimes I need to walk into the racetrack and have one persona, and sometimes I have a different one. And like life is just so, it's kind of cool, right? It keeps you on your toes. So I've been thinking about that a lot, and I have to have a different mindset every race I show up to, and this one I seem to have a pretty decent one at because I've been here a lot, like I was talking about. But I feel like I learned a lot when I first moved away from home, because again I moved away from home when I was 15, and I didn't have my family with me, right? So like there were 2 years there I was kind of a shithead, for the lack of a better term, and probably rubbed some people the wrong way, and I still sometimes do that, but working at moving away from that, and that's been the biggest thing I think, is just figuring out like what makes me happy. Obviously I know I have the talent, I have the speed, and I have the resources I need. At the end of the day, it just comes down to how I live my life, and that's always kind of why I brought up earlier, like that's kind of the whole thing I'm working on right now, is just figuring out right now this year I feel like I just need to focus on just racecraft stuff. I have the speed, the cars are good right now, and we're all moving in the right direction, but it's like changing my prep and not really focusing on how to make lap time, but how to make the right moves at the right time and put myself in positions to win. And I feel like I had a realization on a plane on the way here, actually, where I stopped thinking about lines and min speed locations and all this stuff, and just focus on like how guys are passing cars and restarts and stuff like that, because I've always ever thought about speed, and now I'm starting to focus on just like only racecraft stuff. And again, that happened yesterday, so still new to it, but no, I think that life is a very progressive, I guess, outlook you have to have on it. And what I need to learn right now is going to be a lot different from what I need to learn in 6 months when it comes to the playoffs. About how to deal with pressure and how to play the game right. But when I was here, when I was 15, talking to you guys, like I thought I knew everything, right? So that's probably been the biggest thing I've learned, is that I don't know a whole lot, and that there's still a lot to learn. Because again, when I was 15, I thought I literally had everything figured out. Thought I was going to go win a championship in the truck and then an Xfinity car, and then I'd go pick my cup ride I wanted to pick, right? That's how I thought. And truth be told, it's a lot different.
Let's go to Lee next.
Lee Spencer, Series 6 of NASCAR Radio and CatchFence.com. If you figured out women by the time you're 20, man, that's really, you've accomplished a lot. Anyway, can you just talk about how violent it is cutting the dog leg? And, some guys, they can do it more than others, but I mean, what is the sensation in your body?
Okay, you're talking to a guy that's wrecked a lot of sprint cars and midgets and stuff where it really hurts. I've, knock on wood, that's not wood. Knock on wood, I've never had a wreck in a stock car where it really, jarred my body that bad. But in the dog leg here, so it's funny, we have ways to hit it. So if you walk the track ever, you'll see it where there's like a bunch of scrape marks, and then there's ones where it looks smoother. So we're actually aiming for where it's smoother, but sometimes you can only go through the rough part, and that part is pretty jarring. Sometimes in qualifying even too, and you're noticing a trend with the cup stuff where it's like this, 30% cut of the dog leg and not all the way down to the wall, because one thing it does too is it actually takes your brain a second, or your vision, to kind of get back to you when you get back to the wall. So in qualifying, where you have to be super accurate and all that stuff, if I go take the most aggressive line through the dog leg, I might miss the entry not because of like my angle, but because like my vision just didn't really catch up in time. It gets pretty violent. So, um, yeah, I think that I'm not a big dog leg cutter because I think it can really mess up your angle and all that stuff. And in practice, obviously, it changes your travels and things like that. But I don't think it's anything that like we need to be concerned about. Like as far as like the bus stop at Watkins Glen, like maybe that was a safety issue. I don't know, but as far as like what I go through in the car, I don't think it's anything like dangerous. I just think like it adds a layer to Phoenix. And I mean, geez, if we don't have the dog leg at Phoenix, like that wouldn't be a good thing, right? So I'm glad that it's still there, and maybe they make it smoother, but I don't think it's necessary.
Has RCR told you where you're going to make your Cup debut, and have you had any input into what track you
My
really?
PR rep right now is like eyeballing me really hard.
But I mean, have you put in input to the powers that be where you want, where you think you would be the most successful? Because you look at Connor Zillich and your buddy, right? And for him to do COTA just seemed like logical. So that's kind of why I'm asking. Have you?
Yeah, I forgot what they told me to say when people asked me this. Um, well, I'm glad you think I'm ready. That's the compliment. I'm very flattered, but absolutely, and me and Connor talked about where we'd want to, one day make our cup starts and stuff like that, and more cup races. And obviously, I want to go to places that I'm good at, but I also know that I have to go to places where I, need to learn stuff too. Where I'm not a Martinsville fan, and this is no correlation if I'm making a cup start there, but like Martinsville's a place that I struggle at, so it's like a trade-off where I can go there and learn a lot, but I could also go there and maybe not run that good. So my first time there. So yeah, I think for me, I'm more of a guy that I want to go to a place that I'm, rather good at, and I have some laps at, and I can like unload and have some sort of knowledge of what I'm getting myself into. But obviously that's up to RCR's decision, and I will just go where I'm told.
All right. Any last questions for Jesse today? All right. Well, thanks for coming in, and good luck tomorrow.